Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Darren, and it looks like my head is getting chopped off a little bit, but that's all right. Okay. I am just going to go ahead and drop something that Mark sent out in the chat here. Yeah. And then we'll wait for them to come on. We are still in the midst of chapter 4 of the book of Acts, looking at Willie Jennings' commentary in the Belief series. Willie James Jennings Acts in the Belief series. Let's see. Chapter 4 is only about that far in, so all right. And Marcy is with us. All right. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I think I'm okay,
Good.
I think I'm okay. I'm going to try to pull up this. I know that I couldn't
mine. I have
yeah,
mine
and I was all ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also was gonna try to get over here to this thing is weird because it'll let you comment on, like, people can see comments on they can see comments on YouTube, but they can't see the comments.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? On Facebook. So
on Facebook, yeah, because I was commenting last week on Facebook while y'all were talking, and I didn't see them.
But but what's weird is that, yeah. But what's weird is I should be able to see yours.
Okay.
But you know what I mean? But like for some reason I can't even. Yeah. There we go. All right. I'm trying to.
Did you get an email from Leonard?
Yeah.
Is he? Because it wouldn't pull up. I kept saying Leonard Edlow, and I would click it, and nothing appeared. So.
Yeah. He said that he's. I don't know. We'll have to wait for him to come back on to tell us. His. It was something like he was starting a consulting business or something. He's got
Wow.
He's got some stuff going on with the city or something that all the requirements or whatever it takes to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, yeah. So we'll have to hear more about that when we get a chance. But all right. There's Mark too. All right. A full complement of folks involved.
Party people.
Yeah. How are you, Mark?
Oh, just enjoying the fresh cool breezes.
Right. You guys having some good weather?
I mean,
finally, the heat wave kind of,
it's been a monster, hasn't it, Marcy?
It's 96, 97, 98.
Yeah.
Heat indices into the hundreds and 110. So finally we got a break, I guess last Thursday.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be, I guess, a week or so of, low to mid 80s, which is better than what it's been. So
yeah, it's been
right.
It's been monstrous. It really has.
That's not good.
Yeah.
That is not good. Yeah, I remember the days of when our first house in Michigan, didn't have air.
Wow.
And up there it's not quite as bad,
I was gonna say,
but those few, that late July, August can get a little rough. So
I don't know if you
But,
saw the report, but it says some scientists are saying that within the next 20 years or so, there could be a massive heat dome with heat indices for the central part of the country up to Chicago up to 125 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
Because of climate change. Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah,
So
that
Woo, fire next time.
right. That is a little
I mean,
too,
that's
a little
seriously
too.
what it's starting to what it
Li-
feels. It's looking more
Yeah,
and more
that's
like it every day.
that's a little too
Fire
close
next
to home there.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we love James, but we don't
We
know
do.
Mr.
We don't
Bolton.
know.
We can set that aside for now.
Yeah. That's a little
Let's
rough,
keep
isn't it?
Let's keep it with the metaphorical fire, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Ah!
That's a little rough.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I went ahead and put your couple
Okay.
questions up, Mark, and I know that I want to keep kind of checking on the Facebook because I know that
Isn't Cheryl usually on?
yeah, Cheryl said she was going to be trying to follow along, so I'll try to keep an eye on it. Usually the ones from Facebook show up here, but like with what you were saying, Marcy, is that sometimes they don't pop up.
Don't come through.
Yeah. So anyway. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying. You would think it would be easy to get this all settled, but sometimes it's just not.
Yeah.
Mark, did you register for the September 17th event at the seminary?
I need to check. Now that you mentioned that, see if I have a conflict. If I don't have a conflict, then I don't. Let me see. Let me look at this date here. I should mention that.
Did you see that, Darren? That the continuing ed is doing a thing on advocacy and activism.
Okay, actually, I don't. So I need to resend me that, Marcy. Now I looked at this thing. I don't have a conflict that
I'll
day.
resend it.
Yeah.
I think it's sponsored by the new public theology degree they have, the Master's in Public Theology. So they're doing like a 9 to 3 Saturday, the 17th of September, on activism and advocacy and all that stuff. So
right, cool. Well, I hope they get the people that they're. Hope they get the people they want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying. Let me see here. So, Mark, where does your quote come from? Let's see.
It comes from. Let me see if I can find the place in Jennings.
Still chapter 4, right?
Still chapter 4.
Okay.
It's after that. Talk about the spectacular joining. It's after that. Where is that now? I'm using my phone and my tablet.
I can see myself.
You were paraphrasing, weren't you?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I can search, I can find a couple things.
So like an altar, like an ancient altar, but now made of human bodies. The disciples' feet become the places of sacrifice and giving. I think that's where I was pulling from.
Mm-hmm.
Is it toward the end of the chapter?
Yeah, toward the end.
Is it after he talks about the boldness? No.
Yeah. Why my thing just blank out? Okay.
It's all right. It's all right. Let's see.
Oh, there they must hear the call to offer themselves for the sake of God, who feverishly seeks to create the common. Was that?
Yep, there you go. That's it.
Okay, so it starts. Oh, I highlighted that. Yeah.
So like an ancient altar.
Yeah.
That part. I highlighted everything but that. No, I'm just joking. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, so it's the sentence above the ancient. Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, there it is. All right.
I did actually.
You did.
So we might have to jump back a little bit too, but yeah, so right in here, right, you were saying so like an ancient altar, but now made of human bodies, the apostles' feet become the place of sacrifice and giving. We cannot escape so awesome and frightening a reality made present at this moment. Israel's ancient gesture of obedience, sacrifice, and giving appears outside the temple, and God is present watching, noting faith found in giving. Every disciple of Jesus who will follow this moment, standing at the altar to receive the gifts of God's people, should remember what takes place here. Yeah. Here, God watches and waits to see faith that connects resources to need, echoing the divine love for creation found in the gifts God gives to the just and unjust.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's most likely just us watching along. But I'll let me also pull up this last part of let me put this up. It's going to take me it only takes me a minute to do all this stuff. I was just going to, this is the
that's the text.
Just the actual text. So no one thinks we're just making this up, Yeah. So now the whole group of those who believed were of one heart and soul, and no one claimed private ownership of any possessions, but everything they owned was held in common. With great power, the apostles gave their testimony to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and great grace was upon them all. There was not a needy person among them, for as many as owned lands or houses sold them and brought the proceeds of what was sold. They laid it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to each as any had need. There was a Levite from Cyprus, Joseph, to whom the apostles gave the name Barnabas, which means son of encouragement. He sold a field that belonged to him, then brought the money and laid it at the apostles' feet. So that's
the text.
What they're getting at there. Yeah. So there. We can jump back to Jennings here. Yeah, so this idea of things being laid at the altar of the apostles, at the apostles' feet. Here, God watches and waits to see faith that connects to resources to need. Those who stand at this fleshly altar always face the temptation of corrupting the connection by taking resources meant for need or ignoring need altogether.
Right, yeah.
Many have yielded and yet yield to this temptation, and in so doing, conceal from many people the sight of a God who never withholds, not even a beloved son.
Yeah.
The church only lives at the sight of this connection of resources to need, where God waits to receive and promises to give.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that whole reshapes all of our talk about stewardship and giving, that just points that in a whole different direction.
Right.
And because when we talk about, oftentimes we talk about stewardship, it's never talked about it in this vein, where the focus is on making sure there's no need in the community. It's about we need this money so we can pay down the mortgage or and fund the ministries, which are important.
Yeah, I was gonna say the ministries are.
We got to fund the ministries. We got to pay the salaries. I'm not.
Are you saying? I was gonna say, are you saying ministries or minister?
Ministries. Ministries. But we have to pay the salaries
just checking. I didn't know.
But we have to pay the salaries too. This realistic. But
the
focus.
If you got a building, you got to keep that building going.
Got a building.
Yeah.
And you need a building.
I think you're absolutely right. These lines are tough. Well, and especially this here, and where it says every disciple of Jesus who will follow this moment, standing at the altar to receive the gifts of God's people, should remember what takes place here. Yeah, even that. Yeah, there's a couple of things that I think about with what you're saying and what he's saying here. One of them is that we get into this, we've kind of got into this situation where our churches, many of them, or most of them, I would say, are rather homogeneous as far as class goes, and certainly as far as race goes. But particularly in thinking of need, class-wise, most of our churches are rather homogeneous. So this reality of kind of people in need gets a little skewed because you're only around people that have very similar needs that you do, and in churches where people are of a certain comfortable economic level, it gets to the point where, they don't, this becomes almost irrelevant, because their needs are not, food and shelter and that sort of thing. Their needs are, I got sick, or, this, something, whatever, there's obviously certain physical, emotional needs, but the need to pool resources in order to actually make sure that the community is going to be okay, ends up not happening. And even in churches in churches that have a lot of people in need, most of them are homogeneous as well, so that there's not resources to share among those, among those churches,
And, well, I think, we talk about churches being homogeneous. I think maybe this might be a bad statement to say, but it's maybe in a lot of urban churches or some rural churches, you might have that greater diversity of gaps in income. Say in a rural church like where I live at, and further out in Goochland, or in some inner city urban churches in Richmond or in Philly or wherever, you might see that more diverse economic background.
Yeah. No, I think, I think in rural churches especially, that's the case. I've seen that, In urban churches, sometimes it's the case, but sometimes they're so big that it kind of is a weird, there's another whole dynamic comes into play. It's kind of like they break up among lines within a big church. Within a big church, they just separate into groups that are along the same lines. But anyway, yeah.
And I always struggle with the fact that, okay, if you have Church A at 15th and whatever, and Church B is at 21st and whatever, same street, it's 5 or 6 blocks apart. Can't churches come together to I know each church has its own individual mission statement and whatever, but can't we come together to form a joint mission statement to serve the needs of this community?
Right. Right.
I mean, for example, when I was at First Baptist of South Richmond, you had Zion Baptist Church 5 blocks down the street, and I always wondered why can't First Baptist and Zion come together to serve the needs of that Bainbridge Blackwell area, which certainly was struggling back in the days, 15, 20 years ago. Probably still is struggling.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think, and of course we should, what Cheryl's saying is obviously true. And is that people with needs are judged, I mean, that's just, I think, you see this, you see it a lot in, I know in churches that I've been in, people who were a couple in the church, if they divorce, you seldom see both people stay in the church, and you usually don't see either one. There becomes a kind of a like a shame attached to that. But yeah, even if you have a need, you're often judged in that way. Yeah. No, I think what you're saying though, Mark, is important, because I think that we need to come to a place with our churches where we are thinking more about our community, or a community, like maybe like the parish model, like what is the place you consider your sphere of influence, and how can you come together with, people somehow claiming this, something similar, some similar background or some similar common cause, in order to work together. Because I think that's, it's a tough one though, because I think even from the very just the very beginning of the idea of bringing something and having it be, someone else's decision what happens with it.
I know in the Baptist church sometimes egos get in the way, because you got the pastor of this church and so the pastor of that church, and you get the ego type stuff, but that prevents collaboration sometimes. But the pull from Star Trek, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. Which I think is what Jennings is getting at here.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think, and to me, I always wonder how we get past. Our culture is so set up on, individual moral choices. We don't. And so even, I think so. This is another angle as well. I think that's difficult, is that, even when we pool some resources to address some needs, even the way we address them, is, I think first of all, it allows us to stay. It allows like the people with the most resources to stay in control of how they're spent. Even if that's not necessarily the best thing for the people who are in need, we do things that address, like we have people who live, and people who are in poverty, have issues with housing and all this stuff, and we gather a bunch of money together and teach them how to save money. You know what I mean? Like that's not, teaching them habits is not necessarily what their problem is. You know,
right. We have
like there's a little bit more going on, than that,
Yeah.
So I mean, like after a certain point of stability, maybe Dave Ramsey's going to be helpful for some people or whatever, but it's not solving the housing crisis or
Right,
something.
right,
In a community, it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So sooner or later, we need to start addressing the systemic, issues that's causing.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, because I think the part of this text that's important is that like the idea is that they actually stay a commons. Like the way that we think about it often is like, oh, you have a need. Well, we will, we'll invest this amount of thing in, but like we don't necessarily want you to hang around. Like,
oh wow,
you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah. Right.
Like we, like it's like we do this thing to address a need, but like
go away.
Necessarily.
Go away.
Yeah.
But
certainly don't
but that's
tell
why,
us what
but
we
that's
should
why
do.
that quote above that, what we just put about the spectacular joining is so critical.
Right.
That the Spirit binds the community together. It's the Spirit that's the glue that holds the community together. Right. So the Spirit builds love and intimacy, and so that whether I make $100,000 or I only make $5, that doesn't matter. It's the Spirit bringing us together, and our sharing and our belongings is what's critical.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's probably worth even reading some of this long quote, because I think it's important with what you're saying. This picking up a little bit from last week too, that intensification of the common, like you mentioned last week, Mark. But this part of the great drama confronts us again with the new order of giving, rooted in the divine wanting, rooted in the divine desire to join us together. These followers of Jesus released themselves to one another, making themselves responsible for and accountable to one another. Matters of money are inescapable. Mm-hmm. They are at the heart of discipleship, but they are not the heart of discipleship. Mm-hmm. Money here will be used to destroy what money normally is used to create: distance and boundaries between people. Distance and boundary is not merely between the haves and have-nots, but also between the needy and the comfortable, between those who testify to Jesus and those who, like Jesus, help those with little or nothing. Jesus will join us, and he will use whatever we have to make the joining possible. We are yet to hear clearly this ancient strategy of the Spirit. Too often in our reading of this story, our view is clouded by the spectacular giving, and we miss the spectacular joining.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, bam.
Yeah.
Well, and just that phrase, they release themselves to each other. That's
each other. Yes.
Right.
That's very. It's a very powerful phrase.
Yeah. And I think that's and to me that's the thing where I think about how even when we do seek to address some need, we are doing it the opposite way around. We're trying to do some kind of giving, whether spectacular or not, and we're not that interested in the joining. We're really not. Because often, I think two things happen with the joining is that, like, you realize that your way of giving is not necessarily helpful. It's not actually addressing the true thing. and you have to go through the discomfort of negotiating together, like how you actually, you know, I think Cheryl has another.
She did a great. She has a, and that question she asked at the end.
Yeah.
Please answer your phone.
Yeah, right. Truly makes those in need family. It would be powerful if all of us, were willing to pool resources so everyone would have. These early Christians truly brought what they had to be shared with the community. I doubt that many would be willing to. Somewhere I lost the other part. Oh. You know.
What's wrong?
No, it's just being. Let me see if that helps. For some reason, it stops at that. Oh wait, let's see. Now let's.
No, it's gone. Willing to.
Yeah, I'm gonna. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna put it. I'll put it in there. I'll put the rest of it in from my side, and maybe we can. Yeah. So there we go. It shows up here, but for some reason, anyway. So to do that would take care of the need the most. How do we get away from this? How do we get away from this? Yeah. Yeah.
Capitalism.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think.
And this sets up really chapter 5 of Acts. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it really just sets it up like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's right. Yeah, and it's interesting to think about, because I was looking at, well, I'm trying to think of why I was looking at it. I guess I'm part of this other book club, and I was reading this book that's kind of talking about, like what you were saying, kind of earlier stages of the development of capitalism, and just thinking about, like St. Francis and the Order of Francis and all of those kind of that whole group of folks in that, I don't know, 13 to 1400s that really decided, we need to kind of live this way, like this is the way we need to live.
Yeah.
And this book especially was talking about the like in Europe, the women who kind of formed these little communities on the outskirts of town or around town, whether they were widows or whether they were trying to protect each other from all of the dangers around. They formed houses together, and it was just talking about how actually it was a lot of those women and a lot of the kind of those independent communities were the ones targeted by the witch hunts, and that the witch hunts timing coincides very closely with the development of capitalism as well, and a lot of the kind of early pooling of resources came from taking it from these women in their communities.
Wow. Wow.
Anyway, it's a pretty crazy kind of background, and I was trying to follow up a little bit on it, but it was you only have so much time to read things.
Yeah.
But
yeah. No reading.
But it's pretty interesting to think about how I think that always when you think about these communities trying to pool things together, that even when people do that, I think often they find themselves on the wrong side of the, on the wrong side of the law, one way or another.
I think about, the Black Panthers. I mean, the stuff they were doing, in terms of what they were trying to do for the community. And of course, they were looked at as thugs, as we talked about the criminal, they were looked at as criminals.
Yeah.
Inspired upon.
But I don't know if you've heard, like, for the last little while now, what's the guy's name in Jacksonville, Mississippi? No, in Jackson, Mississippi. I mean, he was mayor there, and now his son is mayor there, or whatever. But they have, like, there's a whole group down there that's like trying to set up almost like a self-determined, autonomous, zone I mean, and it's a majority black city, so it's like a
Oh wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Is it Jacksonville or Jackson? Which one is Jackson? I don't know. Mississippi.
Jackson is Mississippi.
Jackson, right? Jackson, Mississippi. Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty, I mean, but I mean, obviously, like, they don't, they're not, that doesn't, nobody really likes that. Nobody likes that idea.
Yeah.
The city fathers, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that with the Nation of Islam. We saw
Lumumba.
that
Lumumba.
Yeah, we saw that with the Black Panthers. I mean, the same type of thinking, and both were labeled as criminal elements that had to be taken down. So I mean, so anytime you oppose the capitalistic mindset, you are the public enemy number one.
Right. Well, and I think about it. I was thinking about it a lot this week with Cuba. Our sister church is actually in Matanzas, which is where the oil storage facility was, where the lightning struck. But the whole reason why we threaten them is only because they don't want to participate in our economic system.
Right.
Like that's why we don't like them. They're basically trying to do on a larger scale what we're talking about here, to pool their resources, to not let, anybody have way more than anybody else, I mean, you could, obviously it's a big place, so there's lots of contradictions and problems you can probably cite, but the reason why we don't like them is what I'm saying is because they don't want to participate. They don't want to just be they don't want 5 people running everything, in the casinos or whatever. So but so then that begs the question, though. I mean, like Cheryl was saying, how do we get away from it? I mean, that's probably pretty simple, like greed. It's just it didn't take. We could probably blame Constantine and all kinds of things if we wanted to. But then again, I guess the question is, how do we get back to it, and what does it look like? What is that? What does that look like?
And I think I always said, because of COVID and all this isolation, that it's just that much harder to build community. It really is. It's just that makes it that much harder. But it's something we have to try to do. We have to try to push to do.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, thinking about how people read this text, and because it seems so outlandish that they share the resources, they kind of skip past it. But maybe the even more outlandish thing is that they actually, came to be joined together and care about each other enough to, enough to share the resources, like they were brought together so intimately by the Spirit that they couldn't refuse the giving of their resources. They couldn't hold them back.
And I think what turns off people is they skew this whole thing of this have joined together, that somehow I'm going to lose my individuality. Somehow my culture is going to be neglected. No, it's not that. It's that we celebrate difference. we see difference as a gift from God, that all of us bring something unique to the table, and that's to be celebrated. But which is the opposite of what we've heard for the past 4 or 5 years, in particular.
Right.
You have to be this homogeneous way of thinking and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It'd be interesting to think about to think about how closely people tie their material resources with their sense of identity. Like that what you're saying with giving things. You're giving certain things up, and yeah.
I mean, to me, as we think about this ecological climate crisis we have, I mean, I tell people all the time, this thing we can't make this without you. All of us are going to have to change. All of us are going to have to change. And I think what people don't like about is that they don't want to give up certain things. But if we're going to save, maybe that's our lives, but the next generation, we all have to. We have to be willing to make compromises. And
I just don't see it happening. I don't know. I'm trying to get back to Cheryl's question. How do we get back to it? I don't know. I was watching because folks are not willing to give up their, what they think they need for themselves to survive, right? Mm-hmm. And this thing on 60 Minutes yesterday about the Colorado River. I don't know if you've been. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's losing water. I mean, it's pretty soon there's not going to be a Colorado River, and it feeds all of these states,
that whole area, right.
But most importantly, like the native communities there, they don't have water to but they're just siphoning water, and no one seems to because this community has to have it, and this
it's all about. I mean, and that's why I sent y'all the link about to the thing Kamal Bell did yesterday on the Native Americans of South Dakota. I mean, it's just. We look at the whole history of this thing. How the United States just violated treaty after treaty after treaty. And just bluntly said that you all don't matter. You all don't matter. That this is ours, and we ain't giving it back.
Right.
Yeah. Even denying the Native Americans the right to the type of foods that they identify with their culture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
mm-hmm.
Cheryl's quote is good. Yeah. That's a good point, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I think that idea, people don't want to talk about the past, right?
No,
and these sorts of things. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's what's interesting to me, I think, is that we in the church, like our whole thing is based on going back to 2,000 years ago, 5,000-6,000 years ago, and reading these texts, and then sometimes we even study enough to contextualize them in their time period and see what they meant and what was happening in that day, and we think it actually means something for how we live our lives, and that's our kind of our whole, that's our whole thing, like that. Yeah. That's like how we, get our whole thing going, and but like when it comes to, our own history as a country, I mean, what you're saying about the genocide of indigenous people, what you're saying about, I mean, where most people's wealth was generated from in the first place, you know, and you know, and you know, I was reading something the other day just talking about how, like, even in the New Deal era that we talk about so much, like, the only reason why the state was able to offer those welfare programs is because they had just started exploiting all the other countries. You know, U.S. had started exploiting all the African and other colonies that they'd taken over from Europe after the wars. You know, so like, you know, like we were able to offer people, you know, welfare programs, but we were still just exploiting another group of people, you know, to get it. You know, we stopped exploiting certain people, but now we were doing, you know, we just had taken over some other people, you know, to get the money to offer those programs, you know. So the people were still, you know, like, so the companies were still making the profits. They just were making enough that they could actually give people enough to keep them quiet for a little while, you know. But and so I think this idea, like, just going, you know, just recognizing all of that stuff about what it means about property ownership. What does it mean? What does it mean about, you know, accumulating your own, you know, your own stuff for you and having, you know,
I think that's where African traditional religions and Native American religions have a right in terms of viewing the planet and creation. I mean, American culture is exploitive. I own this. Where African culture and Native American culture is relational, and that's why I say that I think that developing a sense of a sensuality is important. In that you cannot love what you don't feel intimately connected to. You know, you have to be able to put your feet and touch the earth. You've got to be able to smell the flowers. You've got to feel a deep, intimate sense of connection to the to the cosmos. Then you can move to a situation in which you cherish it and thereby take care of it. I mean, right now we're just so disconnected.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's what Jenny's trying to get with each other. That involves taking some risks. That involves maybe even being a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, for some people, it's uncomfortable to take their shoes off and put their feet in the sand. But that's how you have to. That's how you have to connect to the earth. You have to be willing to do that, to come out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. I'm trying to put a link to this book. And I don't want to do the Amazon one, so I'm trying to find. I can't remember who it. Oh, this is good. This is what's her name's book. Erdich, Louise Erdrich's bookstore. So that's good enough, you know. We'll do that. But there's a book called The Red Deal.
Okay.
That's a play, you know, a take on the Green New Deal or the green, you know.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. So it's pretty good, you know. It's worth checking out. But I think you're right. I think and kind of what I'm actually trying to think of how to do this in the future, sometime in the next year or so. Is do some stuff around indigenous kind of thinking and with the church, you know.
Well, speaking of that, let me just say, I heard a classmate preach a couple of weeks ago, and she referenced the First Nation translation. Have you heard? So do you have that, Darren or Mark?
I had to read out of it for for a presbytery meeting up here.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think I don't know if I have it.
Yeah, I got it was $3.99 on Kindle, so I got it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to read through it now. But it you know, it's supposedly a translation kind of from the native perspective.
Yeah.
So.
And I read some of it. I mean I read some of it. I don't remember what text I had to read. I just remember I had to read some of it. And I personally liked it. I was trying to look and see, you know, like who did it, you know, and like, you know, see how, you know, what I mean? But
Well, let me go get it on my Kindle and I can tell you.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. No. So anyway, but I mean, I looked into it a little bit, and it seemed like it, you know, it was a group of people who did it, and not just one person. You know what I mean? You know, a group. You know, Marcy was asking.
I'm trying to pull it up.
Mark's,
I'm pulling it up. Trying to pull it up. Oh my gosh, it's like way.
I can forward it to her probably if I get to it real quick.
So have y'all read the Red Deal? Have y'all read that?
I've only listened to people talking about it.
Okay.
There wasn't really a link on this CNN thing, right? Mark, it was just mentioning it.
I think I just mentioned it. Hopefully CNN will repeat that. Will repeat it.
Yeah.
Or they'll replay it because it really was excellent. It really was.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark. I mean, sorry, Cheryl. I think it was.
Tell it was.
Just the email that he sent. Yeah.
United Shades of America. Hopefully they'll repeat that episode.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And I've heard some of the authors talk about it on a couple different places, and so and I've looked at little parts of it, but I haven't read it all the way through. So I need to do that. I want to do it sometime, and I'm working up to it. Yeah. But I did a Lenten. I read this Lenten kind of devotional from this guy Randy Woodley. He's in Oregon, I think, but and I don't even remember how I came across it, but it was really good. Like it was just really, thought provoking. And I know I read a book by his called Shalom and the Community of Creation or something like that, which is a pretty good book as well. So, but then there's the other book. I have a bunch of books by that I haven't read yet by Vine. Loria Jr. is the guy's name. He wrote a book called God is Red, which I think Jennings mentions in this commentary at some point.
Yeah.
He has another book called another book called Custer Died for Your Sins. And a bunch of other interesting things, some other good stuff. So
Red Earth,
I don't know. I've been meaning
to
try to get. I've been trying to get into it sometime, but I think though that what I think what you're saying right about African traditions from the continent, indigenous folks, there is that relational communitarian vibe that that we just I'm sorry me and my ancestors took it a different direction. So
I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit surprised that we don't see. I mean, maybe you all see it more discussions from mainstream denominations on this ecological crisis. I mean, you just don't see it. I mean, I thought we would have seen some statements,
right?
But it's just like nobody's really talking about it.
Right. Well, I'm sure the statements are out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say
But that's the whole
emails.
problem.
Okay.
The statements are there's a lot of statements.
A lot of statements. Right.
Right.
I was gonna say I get PCUSA stuff all the time about it, but a lot of statements.
Well, this and and maybe this is a good place to kind of take this conversation, because I think this is really good. And this is kind of what I have to try to figure out how to talk about this week in church too. So it's helpful to me. It's like, in a way, we have to decide, like, what's the best way to come together in a certain group of people and live the best way we can to be faithful to what God is calling us to. Knowing that, it's going to be not only a challenge to most people, the way that they live, but also it's going to be something we have to build that's outside of what all is going on, like what we've been saying. While at the same time, we have to fight against, the people who are going the other direction, just taking over everything and and destroying it before we ever get a chance to make it good.
Yeah.
So there's like there's like double, there's kind of two things we have to do at the same time. And obviously, the problem is we're not doing either one of them.
Right.
We're not advocating, forcefully enough, and we're not building
enough.
Alternatives, quickly enough, especially the church. I think there's models out there for either one of those, but yeah. And unfortunately, it just seems like the church is just, it's just not.
And I think that,
I
think that the voices there's some, I guess we would call non-mainstream voices, whether it be LGBT theology or womanist theology, that are echoing this, but they're not mainstream. They're outside. And sometimes they're looked at as kooky or off, but I think there's voices that need to be heard.
Right. Yeah.
Well, what does it mean to release ourselves to each other? That's really the question. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Today, what does that look like? And do we have enough? Do we have enough will and courage, really? Because it's going to take a lot of courage.
To
do it.
Right.
I'm not sure that we have enough of either of those things at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Cheryl's comment makes me, and I don't mean to dunk on these people too much because they're already having their own problems probably by now. But I don't know if you've seen it. I think it's on Netflix, that the series The Anarchists.
No,
I've heard of it.
Yeah. So it's about this whole group of anarcho-capitalist folks that get all into Bitcoin, and they're down in they have this thing called Anarchapulco down in Acapulco, and then and so anyway, but the thing is that their whole thing is well, obviously it's edited, so who knows what their whole vibe is, but it's they keep talking about, and I'm not necessarily saying that they're wrong, I'm just saying they keep talking about, well, and then we have to pay our taxes, they're trying to take our taxes, they're trying to take, and it's yeah, I hear what you're saying, but is that the is that really why you have the problems that you have? Is that really, is that the burden that's I don't know.
That's your real, that's your bane. That's the bane of your existence.
Anyway, but of course it gets crazy because of course, because they still want to be capitalists and, individual property owners, in a lot of ways, it just, whenever the boom comes to in Bitcoin, when it came in 2017, there becomes these big tiers of people who actually had, Bitcoin to mess around with. and to sell off. Then there were the people who didn't have any, who didn't have any. And so, this becomes this big haves and have nots, thing. And, anyway, I mean, but anyway, Cheryl's comment made me think about that. People always thinking of who's
they're victims.
Yeah. Well, that we got the big, what is it? It's the Senate race. Ron Johnson, who's our senator. You might have heard of him because he's over there on the extreme, but he's running against this guy, Mandela Barnes is the guy's name. And so they have this guy doing his ad about how, he wants to bring progressive ideas and do this and that. And then the so they show him saying all this. And then at the end of the commercial, it's like, and how's he going to pay for it all? And shows some woman with a sledgehammer, some worker, in a hard hat, he's going to take your taxes. You know what I mean? It's like, anyway, I mean, it's just typical. Well, I don't know what to say. Cause I mean, we just read up to the end of chapter 4. I feel kind of like, I feel like maybe I feel it's rushing it to get to leave it so soon, but I think it's only been 4 or 5 weeks, so we might have to.
4 weeks.
But I think this what happens in chapter 5. I mean, I think they connect. So I think we still can dialogue in the same vein.
Well, if Leonard's back, we'll let him have his say too, and then he can 30 minutes in, we might transition over.
Marcy, resend me that link because now that I see,
I sent it to you already.
Okay, all right. So I will look at it and take care of that.
So 5, we're gonna do 5, or we're gonna stay in 4.
Well, let me see. Yeah, good question.
Because the next section is 5 through chapter 9. I think is what I.
Oh yeah.
It goes really far. 5, 1 through 17. Oh, 5 might. Well,
what about if we do? Why don't we just do that? The 5, 1 through 17, and then that that little excursus on marriage, money, and discipleship.
Yeah. Okay.
Because that'll take us in the book. That's
Oh, is that a not? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, nice and
okay.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So that's 52 through 61 in the book.
Okay.
Yeah. So just that section and the little extra reflection. Yeah.
Okay.
That should be good.
Some good stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks to Cheryl for hanging out and asking questions.
I'd like to see her join us one time if she can.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll have to get her in here. And anyone else? Anyone else who's watching, if you're watching later, you can put a question in the comments somehow. We'll come back around to it. And if anybody's watching now and is afraid of us, go ahead and go ahead and ask a question. Mark is actually a really nice guy. I know.
Yeah. Thank you.
No. All right. Well, thank you all. It's been good.
Thank you all.
Good talking to you.
Good stuff.
All right.
Bye. Bye.